Who are going to be Atlanta's statistical leaders this year? Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today, your daily source for news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, award-winning baseball writer and podcaster. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. We're proudly part of the Believe Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app or go to fanduel.com to get started. A little bit later in the show, I want to talk about some of the recent transactions that have happened, right? A former Brave signs somewhere else, and then possibly even throw out a potential trade that would make a lot of sense and would help Atlanta reinforce their roster. But before we do that, let's talk about reasonable expectations for 2026. Because when you look at the Atlanta Braves season from last year, I think it's very easy to say that some of the numbers were a little bit disappointing as far as your offensive leaders, your pitching leaders, just not necessarily where we thought the Braves would be going into the year. So if we're talking about who's going to lead the Braves in categories, and you start with offense, the obvious answer is Ronald Acuña Jr. for just about any category you can think of. So, like, home runs, it makes sense it's going to be either Ronald Acuña Jr. or Matt Olson. You can kind of go through this whole list. But I found it really interesting. FanDuel went out and put their home run odds, so regular season home run numbers, for so many different players across Major League Baseball. And they had guys to hit 30 plus, 40 plus, 50 plus, even odds on somebody hitting 60. And they don't have anybody, favored to do that. But the only Braves player of probably the 40 players that they threw on this list for home run totals was Ronald Acuña Jr. And the over-under for Ronald is set at 28 and a half home runs. And I don't know about you, but that feels really low to me. And I know that 2023's offense is not coming back, right? The 40-70 thing from Ronald, just like Matt Olson's not going to hit 54 home runs again and all of that. But Ronald hit 21 home runs in 95 games last year. Like, if you look at this team by WAR last year, Matt Olson was number one, 4.7 WAR. That's per Fangraphs. They have a different WAR calculation than Baseball Reference. And Ronald Acuña Jr. in 95 games and 400 plate appearances was second at 3.5 WAR. And Olson led the team with 29 home runs. Ronald hit 21 in 95 games. Like, it was a 5.1% home run rate. And what I don't think we necessarily, we talk about that 2023 season being such an outlier. The 2023 season, Ronald's home run rate was 5.6%. Last year, it was 5.1%. Ronald's had full seasons with higher home run rates than what he did last year or in 2023. In 2019, he led the National League with 715 plate appearances and a 5.7% home run rate, and he hit 41 home runs. It feels like if Ronald is healthy, it feels like this number should not be 28.5. This number should probably be 35. And I think the caveat of if Ronald's healthy is doing a lot of work here. Because, clearly, he's had exactly 2 seasons in his career where he's even reached 500 plate appearances. 600 and change is a full season, like 660 is a full season. He has 2 seasons where he led the National League in plate appearances, 19 and 23. And one of those was a 5th place MVP finish, and one of those was an MVP winning season. So I do think that when you look at Ronald and you see 28.5 home runs, that's definitely factoring in the injury, because it can't be factoring in performance. Again, last year, 5.1% home run rate, which was within 0.5% of where he was in that MVP season. So I feel like 28.5 only makes sense if you assume he's going to get hurt again. And what's really frustrating is Matt Olson is not on this list. He's not mentioned in there at all. And again, he had that 54 homer season in 2023. That's not happening again. We're all kind of understood at this point that season was an outlier. But outside of that, he has 3 other seasons in his career of 34 or more, and then now 2 consecutive seasons of 29 home runs and 95 or more RBI. So it feels like he's kind of a lock to put up somewhere around at least 30 home runs. He didn't make the board at all. He's not even on the odds list. They have some of the obvious guys in here, right? They've got Cal Raleigh on here. They've got Aaron Judge on here. But like, Bo Bichette's on the board, and his over-under is 18.5. Bo Bichette can make the board, but Matt Olson can't make the board, right? Minutaka Murakami is on the board with the White Sox. They can't even spell his name right on his locker in spring training. He's on here at 25.5 home runs. I feel like Matt Olson should probably be on here. The number should probably be 28.5 home runs. Again, 2 straight seasons of 29. When you look at stolen bases, it's very obvious and easy to say that Ronald Acuña Jr. is going to lead the team in stolen bases. Yeah, that's fine. Who would be number 2 on this team in stolen bases? I think that's actually a really interesting conversation, is who would be second? Because last year, the guy that was second on the team in stolen bases, he technically led the team in stolen bases, was Michael Harris with 20. So Michael Harris being the number 2 behind Ronald Acuña Jr. in stolen bases would make sense. The question would then be, can he get on enough to actually put up that many stolen base attempts? To their credit, to his credit, Fangraphs has him in their depth chart projection hitting 275 next year. They have him being obviously a positive defender, but also a positive hitter and base runner. So he comes out with like 3.5 WAR, which would be, I think, a great outcome for Atlanta. Outside of Ronald, you can see how Michael Harris would make sense. Depending on how quickly he comes back, and depending on the health of his hand, and, like a worry of re-injury or something, I wouldn't put it past Ha-Seong Kim to steal a bunch of bags. If he makes it back in mid-May, which I've been on the record, I think that's a bit optimistic. But you look at Ha-Seong Kim, if he makes it back in mid-May, he misses just over, 6 weeks of the season. Well, guess what? 2024, he played 121 games because he hurt his shoulder late in the year, and he stole 22 bags. So, his fully healthy season of 2023, where he played in all but 10 games, he stole 38. Could you see Ha-Seong Kim under Antoine Richardson if he comes back on their projected timeline and he's not afraid of re-injuring his hand, he puts on the mitt or whatever? Could you see him stealing 30 bags? I think you could. Obviously, again, Michael Harris, a threat there. Ozzy Albies stole 14 last year. Quietest 14 stolen base season I've ever seen. I didn't even realize he did that. Jurickson Profar took 9. I know he's not very fast. He's going to have opportunities hitting behind Ronald, hitting ahead of, I have him batting second, so hitting ahead of Matt Olson and Austin Riley and Drake Baldwin. He's going to have opportunities to run. I'd be curious to see I think he breaks double digits pretty easily. Again, he had 9 in half a season. He only played in 80 games because of the suspension. So, 9 stolen bases for him. That projects out to close to 20 for a full-length season. I think you have a couple different guys who could all kind of battle for second in stolen bases behind Ronald. RBI, however, that one really feels like there's a good chance that it's going to be Matt Olson. If you assume that the lineup has Ronald leading off, which Walt Weiss has said he wants to do that. I ran the math. We did the math using everybody's offensive projections. And the best lineup is Profar leading off and Ronald batting second. But Ronald wants to lead off. Walt Weiss has gone on the record at talking about how intimidating it is for Ronald to bat leadoff for other teams. Matt Olson feels like a pretty good bet to come in first place in RBI. He had 95 last year. I really don't want the team leader to be under 100 RBI. Really feels like Atlanta needs more RBI than that to hit their ceiling as an offense. A full season of Ronald, a full season of Profar, a lot of playing time for Drake Baldwin. It really feels like they need to do better than 95. Just like they need to do better than 29 home runs for the team leader. Last year, number 2 in RBI was Michael Harris with 86. For as bad as he was a good portion of the time, he was one of the best hitters with runners in scoring position, and he was driving dudes in. Drake Baldwin was 3rd with 80. Ozzy Albies was 4th with 74. So you've got multiple different guys that, put up pretty good RBI numbers last year. If Olson could do, I don't think he's going to do anything like 120. He had 139. He led baseball in 2023. I don't think something like that's going to happen, but if he can be at 110, that's a pretty good team leader. And then from there, I'm hopeful Austin Riley's core problems are fixed and he can be that guy that he used to be. I do think Drake Baldwin, especially getting a lot of playtime early and being able to DH later when Sean Murphy comes back, I think Baldwin could come closer to 100 RBI. Again, he had 80 last year in 446 plate appearances. If you look at that over 162, that's a 25 homer, 105 RBI pace. So maybe Baldwin could do it. And then WAR, it's going to be Ronald Acuña Jr. I think the bigger question is who is your number 2 in WAR? Matt Olson, again, was your team leader last year. He's so good defensively, but it's at first base. Most of his WAR is going to be driven by the bat. And so if he's that 110 RBI guy, if he's a 35 homer guy, I think he's probably up there again in WAR, and he's your team leader. But again, it's all down to how much his bat plays, because we can't count on his defense carrying his WAR. And honestly, at first base, you need the offense to do it. In just a minute, let's talk about the pitching, because this is the one where there's who's going to lead in innings, who's going to lead in strikeouts, who's going to lead in ERA. There's a lot of possible answers here. We'll talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Fantrax, the most customizable fantasy platform on the planet. They've partnered with us to promote their fantasy baseball offerings. My home dynasty league is on Fantrax. Everybody in the Discord, we got together, we set up a redraft league for this season on Fantrax. And I got to tell you, the customization options in there as I was setting it up, scoring categories, whatever we can think of. I went with OPS instead of batting average. And I went with wins plus quality starts from your pitchers. It was an option in there. There's so many. You can have walk-off hits as a scoring category. There are so many options in there. The player pool is so incredibly deep. Absolutely deepest player pool in the industry. It is the perfect app for as little or as much customization as you want from your fantasy league, and you can play for free. Fantrax.com/Braves today. That's Fantrax, Fantrax.com/Braves today to get started now. Welcome back to Braves Today, Lindsay Crosby. Let's talk about the pitching. Real quick before we do that, I want to let everybody know, I got a lot of questions about this, a lot of requests for this. BravesToday.shop is the Braves Today merchandise store. We just launched this literally on Monday. It's got everything from coffee mugs and water bottles to hats and t-shirts and hoodies. There's laptop stickers, there's koozies, notebooks, anything you can think of. with the Braves Today logo with different stuff on there. The Discord even asked if I would take the "I want you to throw a cutter" photo, the propaganda poster that I made about throwing cutters, and turn that into a t-shirt. We did that too. So again, bravestoday.shop. That's not partnered with anybody. I set that up myself. If you have an issue, just let me know. I'm kind of learning as we go on this, but all of those proceeds, we're going to donate some to the Atlanta Braves Foundation, and all of the rest will be used to help fund all the coverage that we do over here on Braves Today. Again, bravestoday.shop. Okay, the easy answer on pitching, right, is just Chris Sale. Chris Sale for anything. When you're looking at who's going to lead the team in innings or strikeouts or ERA or walk rate or home runs per nine, whatever it might be, the easy answer is Chris Sale. And he led the team in a lot of categories last year. He didn't lead the team in all the categories last year. Innings pitched last year was actually Bryce Elder at 156 and a third. And the number 2 guy in innings was also not Chris Sale. Chris Sale threw 120. Spencer Strider threw 125 and a third. Because remember, Strider missed like the first 2 weeks of the season, and then he missed just under a month with that hamstring strain. Sale missed a full 2 months on the injured list with that ribcage fracture. So innings-wise, Elder was your leader, then Strider, then Sale. I really don't want Bryce Elder to lead the team in innings again this year. If he does, either something went really right, he added the cutter, he tweaked some of what he did, he found the drop on his slider again, and he became a legitimate number 4, number 5 workhorse, or something went really, really wrong and you lost a bunch of starting pitchers. So hopefully it's not Bryce Elder. I think Chris Sale could be that guy. The one concern I have is Chris Sale threw 177 and 2/3 innings in 2024. Led the team in innings, led all of baseball in wins and ERA, and was one off of leading baseball in strikeouts, all that good stuff. But he also had the back spasm pop up late and wasn't available for the final 2 weeks of the season and the wild card round. I don't know if Chris Sale making 30 starts again is going to be what they try to do. It felt like that 24 season, they did a really good job keeping everybody using spot starters, pushing guys back, and trying to buy extra rest. And if you remember, the second half is when they started to go away from that. They were running out of optionable guys. You can only option somebody down 5 times. And, injuries had taken hold at that point, and they just kind of started putting them on a normal schedule. And that's when you saw Sale have the back spasms and not be available. So I don't think Chris Sale, in a best-case scenario, is leading the team in innings. But I think Spencer Strider can do it. And the one thing that I know everybody's talking about how this is not the same Spencer Strider. And last year it was not the same Spencer Strider. You are right. But what we are kind of not really understanding from Spencer Strider's season, he finished with a 4.45 ERA on a 4.53 FIP. But his season was a tale of 3 seasons, right? 3 different distinct time periods, okay? April through July, he had a 3.71 ERA in 77 and 2/3 innings. Not his usual, but not bad. He was really good down the stretch. August 25th through September 27th, the end of the season, he had a 2.50 ERA in 36 innings. But in the middle in there, August 6th through 18th, he had 3 games. He threw 11 and 2/3 innings with a 15.43 ERA. And those 3 outings, those 3 games where he just got obliterated in back-to-back-to-back starts, raised his final ERA by over a full run. In that stretch, he went 4 and 2/3 against Milwaukee, 5 runs on 11 hits, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts, gave up 2 homers. Then they went to Citi Field, and he gave up 8 runs on 8 hits, including 3 homers, to the Mets in 4 innings. And then he came home to face the White Sox, 7 runs on 10 hits in 3 innings. And I remember at the time doing a podcast, I know I wrote a newsletter about it, asking if they needed to shut Spencer Strider down for the rest of the year. Did he hit the wall? Did he need to take some time off? They gave him an extra rest day. He worked on some stuff. And again, in the month of September, the team only went 2-3. But the 2 losses that he took, he allowed 2 runs on 6 hits in 6 innings at home versus the Cubs. Second straight outing he faced against them. And his final game of the season, he allowed 3 runs in 6 innings to the Pirates when we lost 3-1 because the offense couldn't score. The 2 losses he took in the month of September, we scored a grand total of 2 runs in those games. Total in those games. You can't just hand wave away 3 starts. But I am legitimately convinced that based on how we saw him adjust later in the year, based on what we know about Spencer Strider and his work ethic and his ability to figure out what went wrong and fix it, I legitimately think he's going to be a lot closer to the Spencer Strider that we know and love in 2026. So I'm going to go on a limb and say he leads the team in innings. And he might lead the team in strikeouts. Now, he does need his strikeout rate to rebound. He was at 24.3% last year. Sale was at 32%. But in that magical 2023 season, Spencer Strider struck out 36.8% of batters he faced. A full season was starting 186 2/3 innings. When Spencer Strider's fully healthy, that's the kind of thing he can do. Not only did he lead baseball in strikeouts with 281, he set a Braves single-season record. He beat John Smoltz's single-season record in Atlanta for strikeouts. I am convinced that Spencer Strider can be that guy again. I know not everybody is. But we also know he's homer prone. We know that he can get, even in that season, 22 home runs in that year. And so I still think your ERA leader is going to be Chris Sale, but I think your strikeout and your innings leader is going to be Spencer Strider. Walk rate, it's hard to not argue your walk rate leader, the guy who gives up the least number of walks, is going to be Spencer Schwellenbach. 4.1% last year. He has fantastic control. No other starter was within 2% of him. I'm sorry, Sale was at 6.1, so Sale was right there near him. But Elder was at 7.5. Waldrop was 9.7. Smith-Shawver was 10.9. Holmes was 11. Everybody else was past that. Schwellenbach's going to lead the team in lowest walk rate from your starters. Makes sense. For relievers, it is very easy to just assume that Raisel Iglesias is going to be your saves leader. Obviously, he has the job as the closer. I still think Robert Suarez is going to have a better earned run average than Raisel Iglesias. It's just a question of Iglesias is first in line for those ninth inning opportunities, so you're going to see him get the most saves unless he's just not available. Or he has another implosion like he did with his slider getting tagged an uncharacteristic amount last year. In just a minute, let's talk about Marcell Ozuna. He's not coming back to Atlanta. But I've got some theories about, one, what the Braves can do, and a potential trade that they could make to possibly improve the roster and free up some money. We'll talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Encase Cards, custom card manufacturer. It's a brand new revamped website. Absolutely beautiful. Go check it out. Encase Cards, ncasccards.com. Promo code Braves Today gets you 20% off, but you upload your sports photos. It can be anything. It can be hockey. It can be soccer, football, baseball, basketball, whatever it might be. They have a ton of templates you can grab, or you can completely design your own card. Graphics, text, like the holographic foil stuff, all of that. When you're ready, you send the card to their printer. They print it on high-quality cardstock. They slab it. They throw it in a plastic case that doubles as a frame and ship it to you. It's a fantastic gift. I've seen youth sports teams just do a bulk purchase for the entire team, and every kid on the team gets cards. Fantastic thing you can do for friends, for family, for your sports teams, whatever it may be. ncasecards.com, ncasecards.com, promo code BRAVES today for 20% off. Again, ncasecards, ncasecards.com, promo code BRAVES today. Final segment of Braves today, Lindsay Crosby. Marcell Ozuna is not coming back. The Big Bears signed a deal on Monday morning with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Total guarantee of $12 million. It's a $10.5 million salary in 2026. There's a $16 million mutual option for 2027 with a $1.5 million buyout. Mutual options almost never get picked up. So what that ends up being, that $1.5 million is a mechanism for them to push a little bit of his money into the next season. The buyout money onto 27. But he's guaranteed $12 million. More than I thought he was going to get. And we've talked a little bit on this show about, hey, should the Braves consider bringing back Marcell Ozuna for a bench role, for somebody who can hit, like who can take the veteran at bat? When we broke down the bench on Friday, and I think a little bit yesterday too, we talked about you've got speedsters, you've got defensive guys, you've got some platoon stuff. You don't have that veteran bat that can come give you a professional at-bat with the threat of power off the bench. You will get that when Sean Murphy comes back. Sean Murphy, even with as awful as his year was last year, as poorly as he hit, he still had the third highest ISO slugging on the team of 210. Matt Olson was at 212. Ronald was at 228. And he, even in that terrible season, he still hit lefties well. So, you're going to get that guy off the bench. But until that happens, until he's back, which again, they've said mid-May on him, just like Ha-Seong Kim, you don't have a veteran bat off the bench. And I was talking to some folks. I wrote this up, I think, a couple weeks ago about questions. Maybe it was last Monday. It was last Monday for Truck Day. Wrote this up about, do the Braves possibly two birds, one stone this and decide that they want to get a little bit of veteran insurance, both for Baldwin and for those lefty situations, by bringing in another catcher, right? You could, Victor Caratini is the guy I would have wanted, okay? Switch hitter. He had time in Houston. Martin Maldonado, obviously we just hired him on staff, so you get a pretty good insight as to catchers in Houston and things like that. It made a lot of sense to me. I think he's had a 100 WRC plus in his career, so he's been perfectly average. But he signed with the Twins a couple weeks ago. Jonah Heim and Gary Sanchez would be your two best offensive options out there. Mitch Garver's also an option too. Sanchez has multiple 30-homer seasons under his belt. Jonah Heim, in his career, has a 258 average and a 105 WRC plus against lefties. So right now, against righties, Mike Yastrzemski's in left field, and Jurickson Profar's at DH. And then against lefties, what you could have done is had the combination of Baldwin and Heim in the game, and one of them's catching, the other one's DHing, and then Profar goes out to left field. He's not awful out there. He's just clearly the worst of the four, and so if you're playing Yastrzemski, you would put Profar at DH. But if you have two catchers in the lineup, you just stick Profar in left. As it is right now, your option's going to be Eli White, which Eli White is not necessarily bad by any stretch of the imagination. He didn't walk a ton last year, but he had 10 home runs. He had 10 stolen bases. And against lefties last year, he hit 244, which was 15 points better than he hit against righties. And it came out to a 100 WRC plus. So he was perfectly average against lefties. And so right now, Cole Reagan's your likely opening day starter for the Royals, is a lefty. So Eli White's probably in the lineup on opening day. He's probably your opening day left fielder with Profar at DH, and then Yastrzemski's in the field on day 2 with White on the bench. But if you add somebody like a Jonah Heim, he gives you a higher quality depth option at catcher than a Chadwick Tromp or a Sandy Leon. Somebody mentioned this on social media, and I can't remember who it was, but now that Marcell Ozuna is in Pittsburgh, they're likely not bringing back veteran Andrew McCutchen. And he's not really played a lot of outfield in the last couple seasons. He was interviewed earlier in the offseason and said he can do it, but he hasn't really played. He was 120 games at DH last year. 6 in right, 1 in left. But 39 years old, former MVP. He's that veteran presence that Atlanta would like on the bench that can give you a quality at-bat. Last year against lefties, he hit .267 with a 104 WRC+. So another guy, he could replace Marcell Ozuna as that veteran who can give you a quality at-bat, who can be a mentor in the clubhouse. And then somebody who, and this sounds terrible to word it like this after I just talked his praises, but somebody you're not afraid to possibly move on from when Sean Murphy's back, right? You got a couple options, here's what I'm saying. You can go with Eli White, and they probably will, but you could also reach out to Andrew McCutchen, you could reach out to Jonah Heim, you can find some bat that hits lefties a little better. And then money shouldn't be a problem with either one of those guys. Pitchers and catchers reported on Monday for their first workout on Tuesday, and they're not in camps yet. They're going to take very small deals to sign. But if you did want to make a deal for Chris Bassett or Lucas Giolito or whatever starter, and again, I'm on the record as saying I don't think you need to spend that money. I don't think you need to spend that much money. But if you choose to do that, you can clear up some funds to do this by trading Aaron Bummer. And my theory here, my thought process here, the Arizona Diamondbacks just lost lefty reliever Andrew Saalfrank to shoulder surgery. He's going to be out for the entire season. And so my proposal is trading Aaron Bummer and $3 million in cash over there. We know they don't want to trade Jordan Lawler. They're not going to trade, like a lot of their guys that we've wanted, they're not going to trade. You know who they would probably give you, though? Drew Jones, Andrew Jones' son. Former number 2 overall pick in 2022, dealt with some injuries early in his career. In case you didn't realize, he's from Atlanta. Clearly went to the Wesleyan School. But he is Rule 5 eligible after this season. He's no longer one of their top prospects. I think a lot of the prospect rating stuff either has him at the bottom of their top 30 or they took him off completely. And there's a legitimate reason for that. He's a gifted defender, not as good as his dad. No one has been. No one probably ever will be. But he's still a very good center fielder. He's very speedy. He's got that tool. The arm is good and all of that. Last year, in 123 games in High A Hillsboro, that's the Hops if you were curious, he hit .255 with a .694 OPS. Struck out 127 times in 123 games. And if I remember right from texting somebody with Arizona earlier today, he ran a ground ball rate of like 50%. They did not invite him to spring training. They invited a bunch of outfield prospects to spring training. They did not invite him. He's not an NRI. That's the kind of deal where they would get a lefty reliever. You would shed $6.5 million on your CBT because the CBT and the cash is different for Aaron Bummer. We're covering the difference. We're covering $3 million. Either way, we shed the $6.5 million, and we would get an evaluation season of a former number 2 overall pick who has a very strong, obviously, family connection with one of our franchise greats. It's possible the change of scenery. It's possible coming home. Any of that stuff could work. And if it doesn't, guess what? You don't protect them from the Rule 5 draft, and odds are, especially if he's in High A or Double A all year, nobody takes him in the Rule 5 draft because they would have to stick him in the majors all year. So if you want to free up money for a Chris Bassett or a Lucas Giolito, or I don't want you to pop a qualifying offer on Zach Gallen, but whatever. The point is, if you want to free up some of this money, because again, reminder, you're just under $259 million on the CBT, and you can't go over 284. And by can't, I mean won't. Atlanta will not go over that third CBT tier if they can help it, because they don't want their draft picks to get moved back. So if you want to save that $10 to $12 million you always keep at the deadline, you're a little constrained on money. But again, save $6.5 million by getting rid of Bummer. You get a lottery ticket flyer on a kid that could be impactful if you can figure him out. And unlike the Jared Kelenic deal, which was a lottery flyer on a lottery ticket flyer on a kid that couldn't be impactful if you can figure him out, you don't have to give him major league playtime and take the hit at the major league level. The folks with the Clingstones are great. The people in Columbus are so nice. The ballpark's lovely. You should go. If he's bad for the Clingstones and they lose games because of it, it's not nearly as damaging as Jared Kelenic losing games for the Braves in 24. And a little bit in 25 before they kicked his butt down to the minors. So, give it a shot. Free up some money. Then if you decide in spring training, hey, we got to go get another guy. We got to go get a Giolito, a Bassett, whatever. You have the money to do that and still have your contingency fund left for the trade deadline. We'll see what happens. This has been Braves Today for Tuesday, February 10th. Do us a favor. Like the video. Subscribe both on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts and at bravestoday.com. All the written content. We've got stuff coming out every single day. I've got a fun piece dropping about Spencer Strider, going more in depth on what I talked about today, how those 3 games really kind of ruined his season. More of that coming a little bit later this week. Also, bravestoday.shop. People have been asking for the merchandise. That is where it is. Go grab it. If you see anything that looks wrong or needs to be corrected, let me know and I'll jump in there and do it. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.